So, ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danielle. It's nice to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. And what I love is that I get to pick not only one great brain, but I actually get to pick two today, which is really cool for me. So, ladies, given that you've both been a judge on so many business awards and you've helped countless others with their submission, I'm really wanting to get some insight in terms of what judges are actually looking for when it comes to awards. But before we dive into that, let's look at the role that podcasting is actually playing in small business. So what benefits are you guys seeing?
In terms of podcasting?
Yes.
Oh, look, from a PR perspective, podcasting is such a great platform that allows people to, hear the business owner or the entrepreneur's thoughts, opinions, ideas on what their given topic is or what their business venture is, in far more in-depth ways than you can with just the written word. You can hear tone, you can hear intonation, you can hear passion, you can hear enthusiasm, you can hear sadness, you can hear happiness. And from a PR perspective, one of the best ways to get new clients is to build relationships with them. And I see podcasting as a really important, integral element of any marketing or PR campaign that someone is looking to roll out.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of profile building, Annette's absolutely spot on. I mean, we want to get to know people before we work with them, don't we? So you feel like you're having a bit of a conversation with them when you listen to them on a podcast. And you think, oh, they're an interesting person. I'd like to know more about them. And you get a flavour, as Annette's saying, for what they're like. Especially for, I find for speakers and authors and people who are really raising their own personal profile, just the ability to share a bit of your backstory and, share some really good, useful information that people go, wow, they'd be great on my stage, or they'd be awesome to have at my event, or it would be great to work with them if they're a coach or a consultant. It's a really great way of doing that, sort of testing and, a little taster before you jump in and boots and all and hire someone.
Absolutely. And so many people say they then go and actually engage with them and they feel like they already know them because they've, as you said, heard the voice and really familiar with what their passions are and what direction, what they believe in. So now moving into the awards. Now, I find people typically fall into two camps when it comes to awards, two extreme camps. There's those that love it and fall over themselves and apply for everything. And then there's others who go, this is a bit of a wank, it's not for me. And some of the objections that I hear is that it depends if you're in the in crowd or the process is flawed because I know that podcast or I know that business and I don't think there's a lot of substance behind the scenes, yet they keep winning awards. So for someone who is perhaps a bit of a naysayer and a little bit skeptical of the awards process, how would you pitch to them to maybe look at changing their opinion?
It's funny actually, Danielle, because you've got one of each of us on this call. I think it's a big wank, and Annette's the absolute awards queen, hasn't been doing it for years. So you've got both sides of the coin. It's brilliant.
And I was going to say is that when people are poking the holes and flaws in things that they've not been a part of, then I always think, put up or shut up. If you're worried that your industry is not being reflected or showcased to the high standard that you feel it should be, put an entry in, challenge the process. Maybe these businesses that are always winning because the rest of us are sitting back here going, oh, it's too hard, or I don't think I can do it, or it's rigged, or it's whatever the reason is that, it's like when people say, maths is big in Australia at the Married at First Sight. And I will never bag anything until I've watched it. And I find that when people are bagging something without any grounding in or knowledge of, it's like, well, maybe you should go educate yourself a little bit because you may find that it's actually not what you think. But if they're on the camp of, just not quite sure, I always think just pick one and enter it and go through the process and experience the reflection and the confidence building and the ability to benchmark where you're at, because there really is, in my opinion, no greater process than going through an awards to really showcase the gaps and highlight the incredible things that you're doing by going through an awards application.
Absolutely. And it is a great time to reflect, because I think as business owners, we all put so much pressure on ourselves of where mentally we want to be, but we forget what we've actually achieved. So that's one of the things I've really enjoyed, is just to that opportunity to sit back and reflect. So in the past, like when I've suggested to people to enter into awards, I'm typically met with a feeling of awkwardness about putting themselves out there and drawing attention to themselves. And then it's quickly followed by, and anyways, I don't have time. So my next question is a little bit twofold. One is, how do we make it easier for our listeners to actually apply for awards and remove that time commitment? And the second question, which I think is going to be a little bit more challenged, which is around mindset. Like, how do our listeners tackle that change in mindset that's needed to overcome the reluctance to stand out?
It's a big thing we deal with a lot, isn't it, Annette? That we call it the itty bitty shitty committee. You know, those little voices in your head, or Annette talks about it as being mosquito. You know, the imposter syndrome that's always nagging at you. It's a human element, really, isn't it, to doubt yourself and to not really know how well you've done. And I think Australians and New Zealanders aren't that great at blowing our own trumpets, especially women. We've got that whole tall poppy syndrome in our culture that doesn't really help us. Annette's suggestion, the first one, is great. Just go and enter. Just put all that stuff aside and find an award that you know actually you're going to enjoy being part of. And there's so many awards that are out there. So the first step we do tend to find with people is just aligning yourself with the right awards. So the Oz Mumpreneur Awards are open right now. If you're a mum with a side business or a hustle, or you're running a business with a business partner, you know, there's all sorts of different aspects. There's Australian Small Business Awards. You don't have to go to the lengths of jumping full into a Telstra award from the get-go. You know, find another category or or local awards that you can find. Find something that you can just to start with. And I think we find, Annette, the nicest thing and the best part of awards that we love, of course, is going to all the awards gala dinners. You get to dress up and drink nice alcohol and, you know, have a lovely cup. But what we find is the people who go to those as the support crew for the ones who've been nominated or the finalists, they walk away going, oh my God, I'm going to enter this next year. So even just go along to some of those awards events, support the people that you know have been nominated, or nominate someone and go along with them and help them, because it'll rub off on you, that whole sense of I can do this. And the fact that it's worth doing is worth just immerse yourself a little bit in awards that are out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like, so what if as a business or a podcast that is sitting pretty, like it's gaining momentum, it's getting some traction, it's getting listeners, should awards still be a priority for that type of podcast?
I think so. I think when you're looking at promoting anything, whether it's a podcast or a business, is having a really robust marketing PR strategy is just sound business sense. I mean, how are people going to know that you exist if you're not doing everything in your power to push your program out there? And one of those tools is awards. And whilst, you know, and I think this is a big danger in business, that we often put ourselves in and go, I don't like this, or I don't like doing that. And at the end of the day, while it's your business, it's not actually about you. It's about the people that you want to attract to come and listen to you or buy from you. So if you think that most people, like if you think psychologically, if we go into, you know, a little bit of sciencey stuff around why people buy from us, you know, it all happens in our limbic brain, in our emotions. And when we see someone enough, and when we see they're achieving, and when we hear the good things that they're doing and the guests that they have on and that they've won awards, it makes us a little warmer and more inclined to want to be part of their journey, whether that's listening to their podcast or buying their product or using their service. So we should use all the tools that we have available to us that enable us to reach our potential clients and listeners and audience or whatever that may be. So I think that, yes, that was a very long answer to yes. Enter awards.
It's really like future-proofing your podcast to it. And I think if you want to get sponsorships and things like that, all that side of thing is actually really going to give a lot of weight when you walk in and you're asking for sponsorship dollars to be put up. And, the funnel might be full at the moment, but as we all know, life changes pretty quickly and the funnel may not be full in a month's time or 2 months' time. So, which leads me to, where does the energy, or where should the energy go? Like, should it go into personal awards or team awards? And what I mean by that is and I talk about business owners here, they're reluctant to put their hand up personally because they want to build a team that's not reliant on them. So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I guess it comes back to what we were just talking about. I mean, in reality, perception is everything, isn't it? So it does depend on what you're trying to achieve with your podcast or with your business. So if you're an individual and you've been in business for a long time, but somebody we've just been speaking to at the moment, she started working for McDonald's when she was 15 and now she owns 10 of them. So that in itself is a story, right? But she hasn't built her own profile. She's built the business profile. So now she's ready to step out and go, well, actually, I want to be the business leader. I want to be known as that leader. So we would be finding personal awards for her to enter. Whereas we work with other businesses and they are very much, look, it's all about the team. We've an amazing company called the Migration Agency. We have an incredible team of people who are mostly migrants who've come to this country and they've got amazing skills and they've now got amazing opportunities thanks to this organisation. And they talk constantly about their team. So it does just depend on, what are your goals as a business or as a podcaster or as a host of a podcast? If it's going after sponsorship, absolutely. Think about the figures. They're going to ask you, well, how many listeners do you have? How many channels are you streaming on? Oh my goodness, you've won awards for the content. That just levels you up. Now, in the world that we live in, it's very, very competitive, right? We know there are literally millions of podcasts out there and we know that not all of them are good. So what are some of the things that people look for in order to rate them as worthy of listening to? How many listeners are on? Are they on Apple? They look for all those signs and symbols that your podcast is worth it. By saying that it's an award-winning podcast is just, again, adding that little, it's like having an award-winning book or an award-winning movie or an award-winning wine when you go into the supermarket. You're going to trust it more because it's got those little gold medallions on it. It's ridiculous, but it works. The human brain, as Annette was saying, we just want to feel safe, we want to feel comfortable, and we want to know that we can trust somebody if they say they're an expert, that they actually are.
Yeah, find that social proof. So where do you find the right awards? Is it just as simple as Googling? And should people just be looking at podcast awards or should they be looking outside internationally, all those kind of things? Because I think often we think of ourselves like in our small community or the service that we provide, but yet for podcasters, it's available all over the globe. And there's stats and things like that you can get it's really far reaching. So where should we start to look for the right awards?
Google is your friend. Let your fingers do the walking. You can look for awards by industry, by category, by, specific types. It might be Podcast Awards Australia. So if you just get really creative and play around with that, hopefully by the end of the year, Lauren and I have created our awards finder app, which we're on track where we've got a database of over 3,000 awards we've collected over the last 10 years. So we're going to put that into the app that people can pay to access and create their own awards calendar, saving lots of time and lots of research. But for now, Google is your friend, or, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you can always contact Lauren and I, and we can create one for you. But when it comes to what type of awards to enter, I really think that sometimes we can get a bit incestuous within our industries and tend to stick within that space. But if you're looking at casting your net widely in terms of attracting listeners and an audience, then you might also want to have a look at the different aspects of what you do within your podcast. Maybe it's a part of your overall bigger business process. So maybe you can include that in a business award, or you could look at maybe a customer service. What's your process like for bringing guests on board, for making sure you promote their interviews, to get more people to come and listen? So we always suggest that when people are creating an awards program calendar is to have a diversity of awards, because different things appeal to different people. And, this is maybe not the best analogy, but it's one that popped into my head. Many years ago, I was working in PR with a client who made a child care product, a toy. And, we got on the news, the nightly news, 6:00, and she was like really excited. She actually thought that this was going to be the big game changer for a business. I'm on the news, like what can get better than that? It ran, and a few days later we regrouped, and I said, what's your impression of what happened? She said, I really thought more people would call me. And I went, well, we did talk about who your target audience is. What are parents doing at 6:00 at night? And she went, oh, they're not watching the news, are they? So if you're thinking that your audience is always just going to be on the one channel, then you're wrong. They're not. They're across a diversity of channels. So you want to do the same with awards.
Yeah, and there are some amazing categories. If you start to dig, there's thought leadership, there's diversity categories, there's categories for podcasts and business awards platforms. So, you just got to do a bit of hunting. But yeah, it's that alignment thing's so important, isn't it? That you're aligning what you want to achieve with your audience and getting in front of them. It's just, you've got to surround them.
Absolutely. And tell me, what are judges looking for? And probably more importantly, where do the stuff-ups happen? Like, where do people go completely wrong?
I think chocolate and vodka works, doesn't it, Annette? They're for judges.
Yeah. And holidays too. St. Marie.
Yeah. Oh, you've gone pricey all of a sudden. St. Mauritius is a bit more than Fiji.
Look, I'm worth it.
I love it. And I'll let Annie answer this, because we get such amazing feedback. A lot of the judges now know which entries the Audacious Agency has been involved with, because we have a way of presenting the information so it's really easy for them to absorb. And it is really storytelling, isn't it, Annette?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you go back and you really think about who the people on the end of your entry are and is, they're people. They're people who are busy, they've got stuff going on in their life, they've probably got busy businesses of their own. So they want to be engaged with your entry. So one of the biggest mistakes people make is writing these really boring submissions filled with facts and dot points. And whilst facts and dot points are very important, it's not the be all and end all of award entries. So make sure you give them some context, help them understand who you are and what you're doing, what's the problem that you're solving, what's the gap in the market that you've identified. The next biggest mistake that people make is not reading the question. I can't tell you the number of times Lauren and I have been judging, and I'll message her and going, oh my God, the question says, what are your achievements for 2021? And they've just finished telling me what they did when they were 12. I'm going to mark you down for that, because it appears to me that you've not read the question. And another thing is not checking your entry, like really basic stuff, like spelling, grammar, those things that on an unconscious level will halt the judge's experience of your entry. And while some people go, well, spelling and grammar is not that important anymore, I'm afraid it is. And there's so many great tools that you can use if that's not your forte. Grammarly, Outright, Word's got a spell checker. And you see sometimes that people don't even use that. So it's really important just to tick all of those boxes. Plus, and this is really important, is substantiating your claims. So if you say, my business grew a lot in 2021, then you might want to back that up with, in 2021, we increased the engagement level on social media by 20%. This is impressive because the industry standard is 7. Our videos had well over 2,000 views across all of the branding and all of our channels. And through this work that we did, we increased our client, new client rate by 15%, an increase on, 10% from 2020. Immediately you go, wow, that business is booming. Instead of going, we grew a lot. Yeah, okay, excellent. Good on you. But what does that mean?
Yeah. I think also some of the times when we're reading entries at the moment, and at the moment we're putting together a lot of entries for our clients as well, and the information they give us is great, but it's very similar. Top quality service, or we pride ourselves on being personalising our service, all the things that you would expect from a lot of businesses. And the minute you start telling a story about where you've come from, the challenges you've overcome, and so on, I think one of the things a lot of people forget to think about with their awards entries is it's not just about how well you've done. Judges really want to see your success stories. What challenges have you overcome? COVID's really hammered a lot of businesses in the last few years. So what have you done to adapt? What are you doing to upskill your team or yourself? So telling those stories in your entry really gives people the ability to talk more than just the financials, or, we can really share much more interesting stories about why we're even in business in those entries when you get to that sort of feeling of, okay, I'm telling the judge a story. I'm not just blasting them with information.
And if you're not sure, about a question or the context of it or where it's coming from, is it okay to go back to the organisers and get clarity, or should you kind of just wing it and hope for the best?
No, ask questions. They want you to ask questions. They want their awards program to be robust and a point of impressiveness for businesses. So if people aren't entering because they feel like that they can't ask questions, then they're going to lose a lot of really great businesses who may have originally entered. So always ask questions. Go to the website. Most awards programs have FAQs, guidelines that you can download in PDF format, and they always have at the bottom, if you have any questions or you need anything, please go here, and then you can ring someone or email someone and ask their question. We do it all the time, and we write awards. This is our bread and butter. We were always clarifying just to make sure that whatever we submit hits the nail on the head.
Yeah, and at the end of a lot of applications, or most applications, it asks for supporting documentation. Now, having been a judge for several awards myself, I've got 2 pet hates in this area. One is where there's no supporting documentation at all, and you just have to take on face value the numbers that they're putting out there. And the other is countless attachments that seemingly have no relevance to the actual submission. So my question is, how much supporting information is the right amount? And do you have any hacks to avoid the judges being left scratching their head and wading through all these countless documents?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, actually. A lot of the time people say that a support document isn't compulsory. If you ask Annette and I, we'll absolutely tell you it's compulsory. You should never, ever, if you get an opportunity to provide us, and even if you don't, you should ask, can I send you a support document? Because, often you've got word count limits. And, there's only so much you can put in 125 or 250 words. So, yes, definitely adding that in. And the question in terms of what do you put into a support document, really, listen to the words, support document. So you're supporting your entry. So as Annette said, if you've said our business has grown a lot and here's some stats, in your document would be the tables and the graphs, and here's the graph of our following on LinkedIn, or the testimonials from our new clients. So you'd put all the information in your support document to support your entry. Our secret hack is just do one document, one PDF document. Reason for that is lots of different judges work on lots of different platforms. A PDF will open on any of them, whether it's a Mac or a PC or online or whatever. Canva's your friend. Canva's awesome for creating documents. There's loads of templates in there. But yeah, just some support documents we've done are 30 and 40 pages long, others 5 or 6. It really does depend on the category you're going for. Like if it's a new business and there's not a lot to report, then it's more about their approach and their ingenuity or their innovation or their goals. Whereas if they've been established a long time and they've got a big team or they've expanded globally, there's going to be a bit more information in there. So just think about what's relevant and what, when the judges open, it's going to make them go, wow, this is a really well thought out entry.
Okay. And what about, so let's talk about the post-awards night. Like you might have been a nominee, finalist, or you may have even won that award that you've been eyeing for. But then what? How do you leverage it and let the world know? And how do you brag in a way that's actually humble and authentic?
Well, firstly, we suggest don't wait till the awards ceremony to do it. As soon as your entry has gone in, you should be talking about the fact you're now an award-winning nominee.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so like this all comes back to strategy. So many of us tend to wing it. It's like, oh, I've entered an award, maybe I should do something, and life gets in the way and you forget and you don't do anything with it. And you miss that opportunity to connect with your followers, but also to entice new people to come on board and follow what you're doing. So having that plan of like, I know that I'm going to enter the Stevie Women in Business Awards, which opens in May. I've got a month before that happens. Now I'm going to start collating and pulling together my information, but I'm going to let people know that I'm doing it. I'm going to ask them a question. So that's not wanky. That's just saying, hey, I'm thinking of entering this award. What are the things that you think that I do really well? That drives engagement. It gets people interested. People love to cheer others on. So there'll be people who go, yeah, you deserve this. You should do that. And then once you've entered, you use that and go, I've just put in my entry, fingers crossed, I hope something happens, or, this is what I learned about the process, or tell the story of why you'd never entered an award before. So instead of it making it about the awards, it comes back to storytelling. Tell an award about the process. Tell a story about the process. Tell a story about you, or tell a story about someone that you've worked with, but make it relatable so that when people are reading it, it's not just, oh, yawn, someone's big noting. And then through the process of attending the awards ceremony, take photos while you're there, congratulate the people who win, make sure that, even if you don't win, you've written an acceptance speech and you still could deliver it, even though you're not on stage. You might adapt it slightly, but this is you acknowledging and honoring the journey. And people love that. I think people really enjoy following, those, even though we live in a country in Australia and New Zealand where we've got tall poppy syndrome and we like to pull people down, equally on the other side, just as strenuously and strongly, we also like championing the underdog. So when we see people who like yourself and you're like going, oh, I could never do that, and someone who you thought was really shy or reticent about awards does it, it inspires and encourages you. So not only is it good for your business and your PR, but it's also inspirational for other people to follow along and encourage them to have a go as well.
Yeah. And so favourite saying, I think, is there's no place in business for modesty. And there absolutely is. I mean, who else is going to talk about your business if it's not you? If you're the business owner, if you're the podcast host, there's no one else going to get out there and jump and go, hey, I'll do your promotion for you. Just doesn't happen, right? You're going to have to do it yourself.
Park that modesty at the door. And ladies, look, I've got to say what I love about the work that you're doing and how generous you've been in terms of sharing all your years of wisdom and knowledge. On your website, there's some really great tools for people to help prepare for this as well. And so for those that want to reach out and learn a little bit more about what you do, where should they go to?
If you go to theaudaciousagency.com, you'll find us. We're actually updating things at the moment because what we're finding is there's a number of people out there who will help you write awards, and that's fine. the difference with the Audacious Agency is we've got that great blend of journalism, which is Annette's background, so storytelling, and my background, which is advertising and branding. So leveraging and getting it out there and marketing yourself as an award nominee or a winner. So we're really working quite closely these days with people to more than just find awards and enter them in them, but leveraging it and using all of those skills to really tell your story. So we're tagging in some beautiful publicity packages in with our award writing these days, but very, very much so looking at the strategies. So it's not just let's enter you an award and have some fun, which is great. It's a good start, but let's build a strategy around how it can actually be meaningful for your business and to build your profile of your brand. So you can find on there's lots of different packages, but we also have some free awards training. So Annette and I have run a number of webinars over the last few years, just showing people, all those steps that we talked about today, and good access to that training. George loves it, obviously.
Clearly, one of the greatest supporters. He's barking bad about it.
Excited. So that's free, and you can go and jump into that. And we're also partnering with a number of awards programs as well these days, and offering the people who enter those awards lots of support as well through the process. So we'd love to see more Australians on stage globally winning awards. We normally go to the States every year for the International Women in Business Awards, which should be in Las Vegas, but it probably won't be till next year that we go. Boo-hoo. But we'll be in Sydney for the Osmompreneurs. We'll be probably on the Gold Coast with the Coaching Awards internationally in December. And now, when does Small Business Champion? Oh, we don't know yet. They keep opening. And so we partner with some pretty good awards platforms that just have that integrity here in Australia. But we'd love to see some international awards being won by some Australians as well. So that's what it's all about, getting out there and getting bigger, going big.
Wonderful. Ladies, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being so open to share some of those nuggets and your trade secrets. I really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. Be just, okay, this is our business, but we think the more people that we can get to feel empowered and excited about celebrating their wins, it just makes it for a whole more beautiful business experience.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you're sitting and listening to this podcast, you just need to know that you've got the most amazing gifts that the world needs, especially right now. And we believe you deserve to be well known, well paid and wanted. So get out there and enter awards. Go for it.